Hi, I'm Pastor Dan at First Parish Church in York, Maine, and I am currently cutting an onion, so I apologize if I'm not looking directly at you, but I want to make sure that I do it right and don't cut myself. I want to be very careful there. So, I'm making a sandwich because it's a beautiful day, and what do you do on a beautiful day but eat a sandwich? And I love sandwiches because they are so much better than just the individual pieces. I've got all of these, wow, I'm having a hard time opening this piece of bread. Got all these little bits and pieces here that I have stored in my house, and this is rye bread, which is, I will say, one of my favorite types of bread. I've got all these different bits and pieces here that are ingredients that I'm going to put together to make this sandwich. And sure, I mean, it's not much of a recipe. I could be making, a big meal or something like that, but my kitchen is a little bit too small to film in, so a sandwich is what you've got. And the reason that I'm making this is a yellow mustard, which is my preferred type of mustard. There goes the cheese, so I guess we're not having cheese on this particular sandwich. That's all right. But as far as I'm concerned, the brown mustard is just gross. I'm sorry. I've got some in my fridge for when my dad comes to visit. So, hey, Dad, when all this is over, the gross brown mustard is waiting for you. See, I'm taking all of these bits and pieces and I'm putting them together to make something better than what they started out as. I mean, don't get me wrong, all of these things are great, but I do want something even bigger and even better for my meal. And I think that's a lot like what life is like. You take all sorts of different pieces and you put them together and you try and make something better. You try and figure out what's the recipe for your life. Ooh, somebody's honking on the blind curve around the corner from Pastor Dan's house. Glad they're okay. But you try and figure out what the recipe for your life is. What it is that you need to put together to make yourself a better person, or at least into the person that you want to be. And the Bible even has something like that for Christianity. It has a recipe for Christianity. Let's see, what do I want to put on next? Well, let's put the guacamole on before I forget, because I'm a millennial, and about 10 years ago, we all got together at a meeting and decided that avocado goes great on anything. So, in the Bible, there's this thing. It's called the marks of the true Christian, but the way that I like to look at it is kind of like a recipe that tells us that if we can put all of these pieces together, we can find a really holy, really Christian life. So, let's see, what's next? How about we throw some olives on? I have vacuum-sealed olives because I can't go shopping more than once every 2 or 3 weeks, so you get what you can. So, the first and most important ingredient in the recipe of being a true Christian, or a good Christian, or a holy person, is love. I mean, who could have guessed? Love is the biggest, most important ingredient. Like, just like you can't have a sandwich without bread, and I'm including gluten-free bread and all kinds of things. Tortillas are an edge case. That might be more of a wrap than a sandwich. But just like you can't have a sandwich without something like bread, you can't really be a Christian without love. And so that ingredient, you got to make sure that you put that in first. Let's see, what am I looking for here? Banana peppers. I put these things on everything. Another ingredient in the recipe for being a true Christian is, well, you want to make sure that you don't put evil into that recipe. You want to stay clear of evil, but you want to seek good. You want to look everywhere in all of your cupboards and everywhere in your life to make sure that you add good into this recipe. And people have different opinions on what evil is and what good is, so talk to people who are a little bit more experienced, people who, like your parents or your pastors, who have had some experience making these recipes before. It also takes energy. Let's see here, what am I going to use here? Well, I'm almost there, so I'm going to make sure to add some garlic powder, because, well, I put garlic powder on pretty much everything too, though I promise I use mouthwash after before I go to talk to people. So, you want to make sure to put energy in your recipe for being a good Christian, because being a good Christian takes effort. It takes work. It's not something that you can just phone in. You gotta really work at it. You gotta really try hard. And we don't want you to burn out. It's really easy for people doing good in their life to get really tired. And so you gotta always make sure that you're putting in energy. You're putting in things that help you be rested and help you get excited. Let's see here. Crushed red pepper. And another ingredient in the recipe for being a good Christian is serving God. It's hard to figure out what God wants all the time, And that's why we have things like the Bible, and we have Sunday school, and we have church, and, we have the internet too. There are a lot of different ways that you can try and figure out what it is that God wants from you and how it is that you can serve God. And prayer, I would say, may be one of the best ways to do that. But we've talked about prayer a lot in the last couple of these messages, so I don't want to spend too much on that. I just want you to remember that serving God is a really important ingredient. And serving God might be a hard ingredient to find in the store, but it's something that you have to try and find as best you can. And I think the last most important ingredient, just like the last most important ingredient here, is bacon bits. Because I don't want to make a whole frying pan of bacon because that takes a lot of cleanup, and I just want a nice, easy sandwich, right? Being a Christian is sometimes hard, but making a sandwich doesn't have to be. But kindness, that's the last most important ingredient that you want to add right at the end. You want to make sure that you are kind not only to your friends, though you really, really do have to be, but you also want to be kind to your enemies, which is kind of a strange thing to do, especially if people aren't being kind to you. But being a true Christian, that recipe requires being kind to everybody. Your friends, your enemies, and especially to people that other folks think might be nobodies. You gotta be kind to all. And that really is the perfect finishing touch on the perfect recipe to be a good Christian, a true Christian, a holy person, a person who's filled with love. And so, I want to thank you for joining me for lunch today. And you may be asking me, oh, Pastor Dan, you forgot the pickles. Don't worry, I don't actually put the pickles on the sandwich. I save the pickles for dessert. Thank you so much for joining me. Yeah. Oh yeah, that's good. A lot of times I toast the bread, but the outlet outside the house isn't working right now. And I didn't have an extension cord long enough that would reach. And you don't want to toast it inside and then bring it outside because then by then it's cold. And why would you have toast if it's cold? I mean, come on. Yeah, that works for me. It's missing cheese, but the cheese blew away. Don't worry, I am gonna get it. I know exactly where it is. Because littering is not a part of the recipe of being a true Christian. I tell you, I haven't eaten anything all day. It was my own fault. I got busy. Yeah, definitely needs cheese. What can I say? Some recipes just aren't as good when they're missing a piece, right? That's true for sandwiches, and it's true for Christianity, too. Those banana peppers, I tell you. They aren't spicy. Just tangy. Are you still here?